I feel like I look like a Splinter Cell with a green light in the dark. Yeah, cool. And we, wait a second, just gonna, and we are alive. We're alive. I don't have water, otherwise I'd be sipping it right now, chugging it. But yeah, we're alive, and we are talking about progress. So the last like 3 or 4 lives, we're gonna get right into it. The last like 3 or 4 lives have been a kind of restructuring. I've been thinking about a lot of things, and whatever research, whatever thoughts I came up with, I wanted to bring that to the lives, and a lot of it's to do with the content I'm creating. All right, because the whole thing is let's get attention. All right, let's get attention, and let's do it in the best, fastest, easiest way possible. And it's like, okay, trends, music, sounds, for you page, hashtags, whatever. All that's there, and you work with that. But there's another piece of the puzzle, right? We talked about the valley of despair. We talked about societal cycles. We've been talking a lot about iteration. What else did we do? I'm just gonna quickly check the homepage. We did okay, Valley of Despair, societal cycles, getting walled. Yeah, I like that. The homepage is starting to look like I've got enough to fill the whole thing now. Cool. Rise and rise again until lambs become lions. That's the topic for today. It's a quote from a movie that I watched when I was a kid, and I remembered it as I was formulating the thoughts for this live, and I decided to make that the title because I feel like the thumbnail does an adequate job explaining what it is that we're going to be talking about. Right? That's what I've noticed. The thumbnail, uh, and you'll notice it yourself. Your eye goes directly to the thumbnail first, and if the thumbnail is interesting, then you'll read the title. So, isn't it more important that the thumbnail is a better representation of what you're talking about? And then the title becomes kind of like a secondary. It becomes like you've got the hook, and then you give something to raise curiosity. And like rise and rise again. I think that'll show up at least. And it's like, oh, okay. The title is like the way to make progress or whatever. And then you have the title, which is like a quote, rise and rise again. It comes well together. But that's the topic for today. It's going to be a short one because, well, the topic is pretty short. It's pretty simple. There's not much to it, right? That's the thing with things that you do in life. Oftentimes, the answer is very simple. It's a very simple, not easy, but very simple answer to what you're supposed to do, right? And we talked about the valley of despair, and it's like you just keep cycling it. That's what that means, right? Rise and rise again. The only way to make progress is to just keep doing, right? And that's what I realized when I was trying to like formulate a way to make shorts and whatnot behind the scenes, and I was missing days. I'm not dropping shorts. I'm not making content. I'm just stuck in this theoretical loop in my head. I was like, okay. So today I woke up. I'm like, let's try it a little differently. I wrote a bunch of scripts. I filmed them all, and I just edited what I could edit, right? Busy day, got stuff to do. Just edit it and just throw it out. And it's like the second you throw it out, and I've spoken about this before, but the second you throw it out into the world, you immediately see everything that's wrong with it, right? And you don't see it maybe in the edit. And it's like, okay, once you see it posting, that's when you start to see, like, that's when you like really begin to review, because it's like that mental block just disappears of like, is this good? Is this good? When you're creating it, is this good? Is this good? And the second it's out, you can't make any more changes. You're like, oh, that needed to be a little different. I needed to tweak that a little bit more, and maybe it'll be a little bit better. That would have popped a lot better. That would have been a lot more engaging if I just tweaked that, made it edit here, more sound effects, used a different music, lower the volume. Then you start to note down, it's like, okay, if I keep the voice here, I have to keep the volume here. And you have to like double check, take the headphones off, hear it on the thing. Like the sound between the headphones and just the phone speaker is completely different, you know, because the speakers are different. But you get a more richer depth with headphones than you do with like the iPhone speaker or like a MacBook speaker, or like a tablet speaker. It's just different. And that's the point of today. I started off on the right path. I'm just going to make content and see how I can make it better. And it was slowly but surely progressing. And then I got into this point where I'm like, I started to get worse, right? And if you see the graph in the thumbnail, that's what that is, right? You start to make progress, and then you get bogged down in all the different details. And you're like, okay, I gotta really like do something about this. And then you start to go down. And that down is not because, you know, you can't just keep doing the same thing and progress. That down is important because it tells you just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, and slowly, you know, the graph just goes up. And I hear this a lot. It's like, oh, I'm just going to wake up and get 1% better each day. And, you know, it's cool quote. It's a cool quotable. It's a cool line, but I don't think it works that way. I don't think it works that way. I don't think you get 1% better each day. I think you get better, then you get worse, then you get a little better. And some days you're just like off the charts. You're like, man, I suck. Or man, I don't really know what the hell to do after this. And the way to fix that is just do. Right? You get bogged down in all this stuff, and you begin overthinking. And the solution to that is to just do, right? So I've been trying to make like, you know, like, oh, I'll do like a thingy. I'll make a, what's the word? I'll make a schedule, and I'll just follow that. And it's like, some days I'll be like, I'll make 3 shorts. I'll write them down. I'll film them. I'll edit them, right? And then it's like something messed up, so I can't post it. Right? And it's like, if I would have just spent 10 more minutes in the writing process, that would have fixed the filming process, that would have fixed the editing process. Like everything trickles down from this one thing. It's like, okay, I just need to spend 10 more minutes on the writing. But it's also like, it sucks when you make like 3 shorts, when you work all day to make like a bunch of scripts, and then you film it, and then you edit it, and then all of them suck, and you're like, I don't want to post this. This sucks. I'm not posting this. But you should just post it, or just redo it tomorrow. And it's like the scripts that I've worked on in the past, I just haven't revisited for some reason. I've just made them. It didn't work, so I just left it. And it's like, why didn't I? Why didn't I go back to the drawing board? And then slowly, these bad habits that you form because of this idea of perfectionism in your mind, you start to just decline. And that's a bad thing. Perfectionism is, it's wrong. It's morally wrong. Perfectionism is morally wrong. You just have to reach a threshold, and you get there by just doing the reps. You know, you don't have to be the strongest man in the world. You just have to lift enough weight to get the physique you want. And maybe there is a cap for you, you know, like genetics. Maybe there is a cap. But fortunately, you don't really have to be smart to make content. That's what I've noticed. You don't have to be smart to make movies either, right? There's some pretty shitty movies out there. And you can blame that on the creators. You know, it's like, sure, they're fun, they're comedic. It's like Tommy Wiseau's The Room. I don't know if you know it, but it's like regarded as one of the worst movies ever. But people love it because it's so strange and so unique. And they can't believe that it actually got made. Right? So even in failures, there's some success. So you don't have to be like a genius to make content work. Right? We talked about societal cycles. That movie just hit a part of a cycle. And you know, you can break it down, you can analyze it. Or you just do. You know? You just do, and you focus on the cycles, and you try to fit things together. You know, you make educated guesses, and you just keep going towards the truth. And eventually, you're at the truth. So I dropped a short right before I came on live. I dropped a short, and it's not the best short, but it's the first one I've made in like 3 days, which is progress. It's a little tick forward, just like a small upwards, forward tick. And that's all you need. And I'm on day 41, so, you know, about almost halfway. So I'm conscious about time. And it's like, just make incremental progress. The process will just reveal itself. Just make incremental progress, and the process will reveal itself. And by progress, I don't mean like the 1% better each time. It's just keep doing the thing and keep an eye on, you know, what's working, what's not working. And you just keep going forward. That's progress. Just keep going forward and just keep an eye on what you did. Just keep going forward and just keep an eye on what you did. And eventually things just click. That's what I'm noticing. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do. No more theoretical jumbo. Just keep doing it. And eventually, you know, some days you're worse. You know, it's not like 1% better each day. Some day you're worse. Some days you're better and you're like, oh, I got this. This is easy. And some days you're like, what the hell am I doing? But you just keep doing. And eventually you just get to a far enough place for it to be regarded as a success. Right? Like, you don't have to be the strongest man in the world, but if you can bench 100 kilos, you're stronger than 99% of all people that exist right now that are alive. And if you can bench 2 plates, you're what? Better than 90% of people that go to the gym? So, you know, have some perspective. Have some perspective and just keep going forward. Some days you'll be worse, some days you'll be better. Just reach the threshold. And that's all it is. There is no kind of secret to it. Just keep stepping up one by one. Just keep punching that wall, and then the brick wall breaks, and then you make another step. Just keep throwing punches, right? And eventually you make progress. Eventually something just clicks. Like I said the thing about like swimming, right? I had a similar thing happen with bicycles. I didn't learn how to ride a bicycle until I was embarrassingly older than you should be. And, it was always uncomfortable. And then one day, it just clicks, right? Like I could ride slowly and like I'd be like shaking left and right and left and right, and falling over. And eventually, it just clicks. And I wasn't even like riding bicycles for a while. It's like I learned, and then there was like a huge gap, and then like I rode a few times, and it was still uncomfortable. And then like a large gap later, I'd say like I was 16 when I started, and then somewhere in my early 20s, I'm in my mid 20s now, right that bang in the middle. But somewhere around 20, 21, I'm just like, I think I can just ride a bicycle now. I haven't ridden in like a year or two, but I think I just know how to ride a bicycle now. But obviously, riding a bicycle is far easier in comparison to this, I'd argue. But yeah, just keep it on top of mind, and eventually something just clicks. And some days, from when I first began, there were times when I was better and times when I was worse, and it was like kind of like the graph in the thumbnail. And eventually, I just got better. I just learned. I guess I had enough exposure. That's one thing. So, exposure is important. But if you just keep doing the balancing act, eventually you just learn how to ride a bicycle. Eventually, anything you're doing just clicks. You start from nothing, you begin learning, you realize you know far less than you thought you did, and then suddenly it just clicks. And it's like you're in this world right now, right? And especially if you're trying to come up with new ideas, right? There's not a lot of help out there, right? There's obviously a lot of research you can look into, but that's just it. New ideas means new territory. You're forging a path, and if you just keep walking forward, eventually, you might go down some wrong paths. You might have to take some steps back. You might fall out of the graph of progress. But you just keep taking steps forward, and then suddenly a path just forges itself. And yeah, that's kind of a simple kind of way of explaining it, right? That's what I'm gonna do. Just keep making shorts. Just keep making shorts, and then you learn something. That's the way to do it. There's no like big secret. You just keep doing the thing, and eventually you learn something, right? And you might get bogged down in this thing where it's like, oh, I have to learn what other people have done, and that's good. It's good to learn from what other people have done to see what works and what doesn't work. That research is important. But eventually you just have to kind of raise sail and just ride the ship away. You have to just go forward. And there's not much else to it, right? And yeah, simple as. There's no secret. Just keep going forward. And eventually you hit gold. Eventually you find something out that no one else knows. Or at least no one else has figured out with the level of proof that you do. People have ideas, but you've executed and proved it, right? And that proof is very important. That proof is important, and that proof only comes from doing the equation, right? Getting the wrong answer 100 times, and sometimes that answer is going to be, really wrong. But eventually, you just proof, and that's the secret of life, I guess. It's like a lot of people talk about like having kids, right? It's like, oh, I'm not ready. It's like having the kid is what makes you ready. That's not firm advice for everyone, but you know, doing the thing makes you ready to do the thing. Right? Even if you don't know what you're doing, just do the thing. Just make an educated guess. And, you might be further behind than some people, right? You might be doing things that other people have figured out 10 years ago, and you're still doing it, and it feels wrong, and you just learn from it, right? It's like the stand up example I always give. At no point is it more obvious that a joke sucks than when you're on stage saying it and no one laughs. Maybe you have the wrong audience, but working the audience is part of it. So make adjustments. Feel the room. If it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board. Tell another joke. That might suck too. It might be worse. It might be worse. As long as you keep going, eventually you just make people laugh. And yeah, pretty simple topic for today. This is going to be a short one. Hugo on the balcony, dropping you. Real cool stuff. And all of this sounds like platitude if you don't know what you're hearing. Whatever it is, right? Because I'm trying to create a roadmap for content, right? And no matter what it is that you decide to do, it may not work. And that's a scary thought, because you don't know who's going to see it, right? The worst thing that could happen is, right? Maybe your mom or your dad or a friend or your school bully could see it, and then you'll be a laughing stock. I can't believe you're trying this. What are you, like a loser? And it's like, perhaps we need to redefine our definition of loser, right? No great swordsman cut a perfect slice on their first try. Why learn to ride a bike if you're not going to be an expert on the first pedal, right? That's the equivalent of how silly it is. Can you imagine like the first guy who made like a bicycle? Hey dude, if I put like 2 wheels on this thing, I could probably like just ride forward, and like it'll be much faster than walking, more efficient. I'll get tired less. Probably carry some stuff with me as well. Maybe if I put 4 down, I could put something on the back with its own wheels, and I could carry a bunch of stuff alone. right? So it's important to note that nothing that exists ever existed before it was created. Nothing that exists ever existed before it was created. Now, that may sound silly because it's so obvious, but it just, things that are obvious don't always click, right? You have to understand it in its full context. Someone created the bicycle, and now it's normal. Someone created the first car, and now it's normal. Someone decided to tame a horse. Imagine how crazy the first person to tame a horse looked to their tribe, right? You know that thing that runs really fast? I bet I could ride it. Like, what are you, a loser? You can't use your own 2 feet? And what do you know? Now I'm riding a horse and you're not. Look at how fast I can go. Look at my horsey go. Don't get too close. You don't know how this is done. You could get trampled, right? I feel like I'm running this metaphor a little too far. But you get the point, right? When you're trying to create something, you just have to do. And sometimes you may have to change directions because in the act of doing the thing, you realize you have to make some drastic changes. You're 10 years behind. You're 100 years behind. It doesn't matter. Pivot. Pivot to what works. And eventually things just click. A lot of metaphors and stories. I'm trying to get to the 30-minute mark. I'll be completely honest. But yeah, there's nothing else to it. You just keep walking forward. Get that shitty stuff out of you. I was reading on Writing Well by William Zinsser, and he talks about like the best writers in the world, like guys who write for the New York Times, you know, or at least when that was far more respectable as a medium of information back in what, the 70s or 80s, before, you know, the internet and all sorts of other publications. But the top writers in the world, they have to, you know, they write like 5 paragraphs, and then the real writing begins in the 6th, and then they could cut away the first 5, and it would still be an amazing piece of work. So you just have to iterate. Write those first 5 paragraphs. It's gonna suck. So just keep going. Keep on keeping on. Is that too cringy? Doesn't matter. I've said it now. But yeah, that was today. If you're working on something, let this be the inspiration. Make it shitty. Make it shitty, and then once you show it to your mom, show it to your friend, and she'll say, boy, does this suck. Or if they're a good friend, at least. It's like, I don't know if this is a great idea. It's like, okay, it didn't work. Back to the drawing board. That's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm doing now. So, wake up in the morning, edit the rest, post them, start writing new scripts. Go back to the old scripts, rewrite them so they work, film them again. Go back to the drawing board. Keep taking each step. Sometimes the work is shitty. It's okay. That's progress. The reps, right? Sometimes you fail a weight. What do? You go back to the drawing board. You know, you come back to the bench. You start with a lighter weight, and then you eventually get to the weight you want. It's the only way to do it. But yeah, this has been me. And be good, do good things, subscribe, and good things happen. And I'll see you tomorrow. I want to try and do a longer live. I'll see if I can make that happen at some point. Maybe after I've finished recording my videos, I'll just drop on a live and see how long I can sit there and just yap. You know what I mean? Yeah, be good, do good things, subscribe, and good things will happen. Because I'm saying good things, and you'll get to hear them. Okay? This has been me. I'll see you tomorrow.